From the ECSI Sports Studios and the #1 sports investors in America, we bring you the closing bell. As the market closes, legends Jeff Dawson and Riley Magnuson bring you all the sports investing tips for tonight's matchups. If you want to learn more from the two legends at the desk, make sure you stay tuned to the closing bell. ECSI fans, do you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as they're the best account on the platform. Head to the App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app.
November 19th. Hoping to get my mic working here. If it was not already, I apologize. My production skills are not fantastic there. Might be 100% my fault. Might be my computer's fault. Nonetheless, we're right rolling with plenty of action. Maybe not plenty of action, but good high-stakes action here on this fantastic Thursday in a few different leagues and sports. Obviously, if you are tapped in, you've got the first baseball game of the night already underway. First pitch five or so minutes ago, Phillies and Diamondbacks game 3. Phillies up 2-0. That one is in Arizona. Phillies go through the top half of that first inning with no runs, now heading down to the bottom half for the Arizona half. And then obviously following that game tonight in Texas, 2-1 Rangers lead the series. That is game 4. That one was also in Texas, Astros and Rangers. And obviously, if you're an NFL fan, you're looking for the Jaguars and Saints. Thursday night football game in New Orleans as well. Going to be talking about each of those 3 games here on this fine closing bell by myself. Rock and rollin' solo. Mr. Jeff Dawson will be on Sports Map Radio tonight with Mr. Pepe. Definitely go check that out if you'd like to be tapped in there. We've got a decent NHL slate, but as you know, if you follow me, I am not an NHL man. I am not going to pretend to know what to give out for you there tonight, so we're probably not going to be talking too much about that. And beyond that, little college football action. No major college football action, so we can at least touch on a little bit. Rice and Tulsa, James Madison and Marshall. The latter of those 2 games could be a good one. 6-0 James Madison, obviously, still trying to rock and roll with that undefeated season. They are 4.5-point favorites at Marshall there, but we will get there when we get there. Let's go right into the bases since we've got that first game going, obviously, today. Last night, Astros get one notch on the board for the series to make it 2-1, as we mentioned, 8-5 game. Rangers offense not bad in that game, obviously, but Mad Max did not have his best stuff. Slider was not his friend last night, and the Astros were able to pull up a few on not only Scherzer, but a few up on the bullpen as well there. So skating into today with a little bit less of an exciting on-paper pitching matchup, but obviously this game could be very exciting. You got Jose Urquidy and Andrew Heaney as far as tonight's game. But just to skate through and at least touch on this first game, obviously I can't get into it pre-flop now that it's bottom of the first. But that game was an interesting setup there. You've got Fat going in for the Diamondbacks today. 1 hit through the first inning. And Suarez, who's been good for the Phillies up to this point. I think this could be a good one here. I think the Diamondbacks are going to have some sense of urgency. I think they could get this one over, but see how this one goes. I think you're going to know what Suarez has here early. Tough to get into, believing against Suarez because you got Fat on the other end who is not putting too much fear into anyone there. So going to be an interesting one here. Obviously, we going to be on the lookout as we go along here. But if the Diamondbacks give up a couple here in this next inning or so, maybe do a little live sprinkle on Diamondbacks comeback. Fad is obviously, if he's getting into trouble, he's going to have a pretty short leash because this is a pretty must-win game for the Diamondbacks. And now as we skate into tonight's game, kind of a must-win for the Astros. Obviously not entirely. You get that even if you go down 3-1, you get that next one, Game 5, and you got 2 at home. So probably feeling like a must-win for them. Astros minus 115 last I checked. Actually, I apologize. Rangers minus 115 last I checked. Best price that you can get them at. Best price I see for the Astros, even money plus 100. Total 9.5 and 10 in certain spots there. Reason for that total, obviously, this pitching matchup not as on paper as high billing as some of these other postseason matchups. Another reason that these teams are pretty familiar with each of these pitchers. A divisional matchup with these pitchers, but also Heaney's case, former Angels pitcher as well. So a guy that's been around the division a lot, and the Astros team has seen him quite a bit. Urquidy a little less so than Heaney's case, but still a guy that this Rangers lineup has seen quite a bit from. So, I'm not sure what to make out of this one. I think you're going to get a good offensive performance from one of these teams. I'm seeing both teams over 4.5, juiced over minus 125 for each of these teams here. So I'm kind of leaning towards a nice Rangers offensive output against Urquidy. Of course, this Astros offense could do similar things to Heaney here, and I'm not going full-fledged into the over. We could have a 6-3 type game here, and one team gets over that 4.5, gets to 5 or 6, and the other one stays under that. That's kind of what I'm expecting here out of this one. Because the other thing, as I mentioned in that last game, Urquidy probably going to have a little bit longer leash, a guy that typically is given a longer leash and is let to go deeper into these games regardless of how he's pitching. Obviously, if he's terrible, that's a different story. But Heaney is a guy who didn't pitch terrible against, I want to say, against the Orioles, his only postseason appearance here. Didn't go too deep into it, even with a halfway respectable outing. Yeah, it was against the Orioles, 3 2/3, 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. So probably not going to go too deep into this game. Rangers probably going to use a decent amount of their bullpen today. So at the end of the day, I actually kind of lean towards the Rangers getting this win here. Astros are going to have to jump on Heaney early to avoid him, obviously, skating through there and then getting out of the game before they can get to him for a second or third time. So I'm kind of leaning on a Rangers nice offensive output here today on Urquidy, who's going to stay in there for 5-6 innings potentially. Obviously, unless it's terrible, then that also works for us because a terrible start to the game means some runs. So I am leaning towards the Rangers putting up some runs here. I am going to go to as Mr. Jeff Dawson has been in this series so far. Marcus Semien to have a home run, has not had one yet in the postseason here. 29 home runs in the regular season. Hasn't had one since September 27th, but has, not been fantastic. It is a good time for him to bounce back a little bit. Had a 2-hit game on Monday in Game 2 there, over 3 yesterday with a walk. So I think he could be turning a corner here. Obviously, kind of need him to turn a corner here if not only want to close this series out, but obviously have as strong of a chance in potentially the next one if they're able to get there. So I am leaning on Marcus Semien to turn a corner a little bit here tonight. And this Rangers offense to put up some runs on Mr. Jose Urquidy. So I'm leaning Rangers first 5, leaning Rangers team total as far as this game goes. So end of 1, Phillies Diamondbacks, no score there, so we're moving on. And like I said, we'll touch on these college football games real quick. Check us out. I know Jeff's going to have some shows here on ECSI tomorrow. I am not going to have any shows tomorrow personally that I will be on. Look out for us on Saturday morning doing a little bit of a college football preview, Big Ten preview, trying to get out ahead of that Penn State-Ohio State game at the very least, let alone some of these other games. So just to touch on these games real quick tonight. Both of them 6 my time, 7 East Coast time. Mentioned in the intro, James Madison trying to stay undefeated. 6-0 at Marshall, 4.5. Even down to 3.5 in a certain spot there. These Sun Belt games have obviously been, these last couple of years, have had some really, really good games. James Madison coming off of a whomping of Georgia Southern, 41-13 as 5.5-point favorites at home in James Madison. Marshall coming off their 2 losses, both their 2 losses these last 2 weeks. One of them to NC State at NC State as 6.5-point dogs, 41-48. So not really anything to shake a stick at, anything to be too downtrodden about there. And then in a bounce back attempt, they cannot overcome their rival Georgia State. Or I'm sorry, I was thinking Georgia Southern for the other one. They did lose to Georgia State 24-41 as 1.5-point dogs. So this one's smelling a little funky to me. Not the main attraction in town tonight, obviously, with the MLB playoffs and the NFL football game. So this one is a little bit on the back burner for everyone that's going to be watching sports tonight. But a team that's undefeated, coming off of a 41-13 Wampin as 5.5-point favorites. Now to go to Marshall as down to 3.5-point favorites, 4.5-point favorites, either way. A team that just lost 24-41 at Georgia State. This is a little funky smelling here. A little bit of a revenge game. Marshall won this one last year as 9.5-point dog, so I'm not exactly all the way in on it. If it's not the main attraction in town, this one could just stay right around that spread, and James Madison wins. But the cover is a little up in the air there. I think if you like Marshall, you might be interested in over 21.5 points offensively there. A little bit of an offensive bounce back, a little bit of defensive regression for James Madison could be in order here. So that is where I would go if I was doing anything. Maybe a little Marshall to score some points as far as their offense is concerned there. So before that 41-13 game, James Madison 8-point win, 7-point win, 2-point win, 1-point win. So a lot of close games. And this Marshall team had been rolling nicely up until these last two games here. It beat a Eastern Carolina team, a Virginia Tech team, two bigger schools there. Old Dominion 41-35, maybe not a bigger school, but an offense that can definitely put up some points there. So don't be this could be a one where James Madison, if you've got a 4 or 5 leg parlay with everything going on in sports, maybe beware of James Madison a little bit tonight is all I would say there. Not going to give you too much with Rice and Tulsa. I don't really know what to make out of that one. Both teams 3-3. Have not been looking too deep into these two teams in this conference here necessarily. So I'm going to stay away from that one. Steer you towards maybe that James Madison game. But without further ado, let's get on into the Thursday night football game here tonight. Saints, the number is a little all over the place on different spots here. I'm seeing a 1.5. I am seeing a flat 2 in a couple spots, and I'm seeing a 2.5 over on DraftKings there, the 1.5 over on FanDuel, 2 in a lot of other spots. So not quite a consensus on that one there. Saints obviously the favorite, no matter how you skin it. And the total 40.5, I'm seeing it tick up to 41. Flat 41 in a couple of spots there. Let me make sure it's more than a couple there. DraftKings, BetRivers, a couple spots that tick up to 41 there, and a lot of other spots 40.5. As far as the team totals for these two teams, Saints 20.5 minus 120. A lot of them juiced over. Actually, there is a spot where you can get it at even money though, 20.5, and the Jaguars 18.5 juice way over, or 19.5, even still juiced over in some spots. So do your line shopping if you're doing any of this stuff is one way to advise you on that one at the very least, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're thinking. But at the end of the day, this one is obviously an interesting one because you have a Jaguar team at a 3-game win streak, a couple wins in London, one a very nice one against Buffalo, and then, excuse me, a 37-20 whomping of their rival Colts at home. That is the last thing that we're seeing out of this team here. But it's a Colts team that has always traveled poorly to Jacksonville, and obviously it was a little all over the place so far this season. Saints, on the other hand, 3 of their last 4 have not looked good. The outlier is a 34-0 whomping of the Patriots. The other 3 games, I should say, they did look good to start that Green Bay game against my Packers, obviously. Start 17-0, and then the wheels fall off. They give up 18 straight, lose that game. Not a good performance either which way against the Tampa Bay Bucks at home. 9-26 loss that time. They bounced back, obviously, with that win against New England. And then a lackluster performance offensively for sure against Houston's defense. Not fantastic, not what they would like, but a tough situation. I mentioned whenever it doesn't matter how good your defense is, when your offense is going 3 and out that often, or not giving good field position, not giving your defense rest. It's a tough hill to climb there. So as 2-point favorites, they lose that game. Now they are back home against this Jaguars team. And really, honestly, my biggest thing that I'm looking at here tonight is kind of expecting this Saints defense to really show up tonight with some urgency at home. I mean, again, you look at that Tampa Bay game, and it's a little concerning there. That is a bad black mark. And obviously, Tampa Bay is not a bad team, but at home there, an ugly performance there. You go back though to week 1. I think this is only their third home game, if I'm not mistaken. Week 1 against Tennessee, 16-15 performance. So obviously their offense has to be better and more consistent. I think you are going to see some of that. I'm not saying their offense is going to pull an entire 180 and put up 40 tonight. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think it's going to be a little more complimentary for what their defense gives them, though, and I think their defense could look really good tonight. Obviously, one thing to watch is the Trevor Lawrence injury update. Who last I saw is expected to play tonight, but obviously fighting through some injury there. But obviously it hasn't sounded like enough to keep him out of this one necessarily tonight. So at the end of the day, my thoughts on the Saints defense really is regardless of that Trevor Lawrence news there. I'm also I am kind of leaning towards the Saints, but I'm not saying I'm going right into the Saints there. I am leaning towards the under as well in this one. I think the Saints defense could show up here tonight, and offensively, probably going to stay around that 17-20 spot, but they could trickle over that on a last-second field goal or something like that. But I am leaning towards the Saints, led by a very good defensive performance in primetime in their home building here tonight, to step up and get this potential win for them, or at the very least, keep this one a nasty, grimy. If they lose the game, I see it as a 17-14 Jaguars win if they lose this game, the Saints there. So could still be having the same concerns about the Saints offense. I think it'll be a little more complimentary, as I said, tonight. And you've got a Jacksonville team that has had some issues defensively previously to the stretch that they're on. Ugly game against Houston, 17-37 there, obviously. Later in the season there, and it's sporadically at times this defense has looked good. Defense looked a little inconsistent. So I don't think it's a bad matchup at all for the Saints team here tonight. That is where I am leaning, and I'm leaning away from this Jaguars team pretty much altogether. I think there could be some players individually that have some nice games. I'm a big fan of ETN. I think he's probably going to feature it a lot. Probably going to get the ball a lot, so not a situation where I'm panicking if I'm a Travis Etienne owner necessarily. Elsewhere, other than that, though, passing game could be a little could be a little ugly. I'm a little wary on Calvin Ridley tonight. Christian Kirk has been very good. One of these guys is probably going to have a nice game for Jacksonville, but across the board, not really optimistic on a lot of these Jaguars guys. So kind of all-encompassing, leaning towards the Saints to take care of business, led by that defense. If I had to do a touchdown score, which you don't, but there is a spot that is boosted for the best two players in this game to be plus 150. If that's maybe a little concerning there that they're giving up free money for each of these two guys here. But outside of that, like I said, not high on career Calvin Ridley tonight. How about a Michael Thomas touchdown, plus 235, little possession touchdown. Again, not over the moon with touchdowns in a game that I think is going to be lower scoring, so I'm probably going to avoid that possibly tonight. But at the end of the day, I am leaning towards this Saints defense to take care of business. Maybe I like a little Saints defensive touchdown action. Let's see, what do we got here? Plus 6-1, plus 600. Might be seeing me sprinkle a little bit on the Saints defense to have a touchdown there. As far as any turnover props, Trevor Lawrence, minus 110 to throw an interception, minus 120 to the under on this spot here. So about, pick them for an interception there. I will go with a yes is what I'm going with tonight for Trevor Lawrence. And I'm trying to see if I had anything else that I was trying to bring up there. No, I'm really going Saints and the under in this one. Not sure what exactly I will be playing, but I probably will be playing something pro Saint defense out of this one. So that about does it, my friends. That is 20 or so minutes, probably a little less after starting the show and let it ride there for a second. As I mentioned, Jeff is going to have he's going to be on Sports Bat Radio tonight, as far as I'm concerned. He's going to have a handful of shows tomorrow throughout the day. Then you will hopefully see us Saturday morning talking college football, previewing some really good action. Obviously, Penn State, Ohio State. I've been amped for that game for a long time. Tennessee, Alabama, another solid game to watch there. Obviously, Duke, Florida State, good game. Utah, USC. So solid day of college football, some big games, and some other games we're talking about, obviously, as well. On top of, maybe we'll talk about it for a second, UFC. Is it, oh, God, I'm going to 294. Okay, I was going to botch that number if I was going to try for it there. But a really, really exciting card there. If you haven't been as tuned to UFC, these are some really, really high-build fights, title fight. And you got Kamaru Usman coming back into the ring against Chimaev there. And Ankalaev, Johnny Walker. Good fights there. So stay tuned for what we got going on, my friends. Might even talk a little golf on Saturday morning if we're there. So, nonetheless, I am going to get off of here and let you go and tackle everything there. Maybe watch that baseball game, 0-0 at the bottom of the second. So, thank you all for stopping by these last few days with me and Jeff. And I hope you stop by again tomorrow for his shows and hopefully on Saturday. So, talk to you all later. Thank you all for stopping by. Hope you have a great night of action.